All right, let's talk about a word you hear all the time, a word that's, well, kind of confusing: liberalism. What does it actually mean? It gets thrown around so much, but the real answer? It's a puzzle. It's full of contradictions. And today, we're going to piece it all together.
So let's just jump right in. I mean, think about it. If you ask 10 people what liberal means, you're going to get, what, 10 different answers? Is it all about free markets? Or is it about social safety nets? Does it mean big government or small government? It's confusing. And for good reason, because the word itself has this really tangled, contradictory past.
Okay, get this. Let's rewind the clock way back to the 16th century. In Shakespeare's Othello, Desdemona calls Iago a liberal counselor. Now, you might think she's praising his progressive views, right? Nope, not even close. She's calling him immoral, basically a libertine. That one line just shows you how much this word has completely changed over time. And it wasn't just that. Through the years, liberal could mean you had a great, well-rounded education, or it could mean you were generous. And then, of course, you've got its modern meanings: a political party, a whole philosophy. So, what gives? How can one single word hold all these totally opposite ideas at the same time?
To really get to the bottom of this, we've got to go back to where it all started. And believe me, this idea wasn't dreamed up in some quiet, peaceful library. No, liberalism was forged in the fire of revolution. And that chaotic beginning, well, that's the key to everything.
So the story starts way back, in the late Middle Ages, with these early ideas about maybe, just maybe, kings shouldn't have all the power. Then the Enlightenment comes along and says, hey, let's use reason to figure things out. And then, boom, the American and French revolutions take those ideas and turn the world upside down. But it wasn't until the early 1800s in Spain that a group actually called themselves the Liberales. That's when the ideology finally got its name. And this right here is the key. Because liberalism was born from all these different super intense, even violent moments in history, it was never just one clean, simple idea. Instead, it was this messy collection of world-changing concepts that honestly didn't always play nicely together.
Okay, this is where we get to the big reveal. The reason the word liberal is so confusing isn't because you're missing something. It's because we're not actually talking about one thing. We're talking about two huge, competing ideas that have been fighting it out for the soul of liberalism ever since.
So here it is, the big secret. The confusion isn't your fault. It's baked right into the DNA of liberalism itself. And once you see this deep split, I promise, the whole puzzle suddenly clicks into place.
And here they are. On one side, you've got what's called classical liberalism. This is all about limited government, free markets, and the power of the individual. But on the other side, you have social liberalism. This came along a bit later and said, hang on, for people to really be free, they need help from the community. And yeah, sometimes that means the government. See? Same root word, but two totally different paths.
So how does this big split actually play out? Well, this isn't just some dusty old debate. This clash of ideas leads to completely different answers for the biggest questions we face. Like, what even is freedom? What makes a society fair? And what does it really mean to be an individual? So classical liberals are all about something called negative liberty. Think of it as freedom from the government sticking its nose in your business, freedom from anyone messing with your stuff. And in this view, things like poverty or not having opportunities, well, those aren't seen as a violation of your liberty because nobody is actively stopping you from doing something.
And this quote from Herbert Spencer, a classical liberal, is, well, it's pretty blunt, but it nails the philosophy perfectly. He basically saw government welfare as a form of cruelty. He thought it punished hard-working people to help those who weren't, and that it just got in the way of how things are supposed to work.
But then you've got the social liberals, and they have a totally different take. They talk about positive liberty. This is freedom too, the freedom to actually reach your full potential. I mean, what good is being free from government interference if you're stuck because you're poor or sick or can't get an education? For them, real freedom means having the actual ability to build a good life. And here's the perfect counterquote from a social liberal, T.H. Green. For him, freedom wasn't about being left alone in a bubble. It was a power we share, something we build together as a community so that everyone can benefit. It's about what we can do together.
Okay, so this divide obviously leads to two totally different ideas about justice. For the classical liberals, it's all about fair rules. As long as everyone plays by the same rule book, it doesn't matter how the game ends. Even if one person has everything and another has nothing, that's fair.
But for social liberals, the outcome absolutely matters. A society with huge gaps between rich and poor isn't just. For them, justice means making sure everyone has what they need to have a real chance.
And this whole thing goes right to the core of how they see, well, us, individuals. Classical liberalism is built on this idea of possessive individualism. Basically, you own yourself, you own your skills, and you don't owe society a thing. But social liberalism has this idea of social individualism. It says, hold on, we're all connected. We're social animals, and my success is tied up in your success and the well-being of our whole community. So you might be thinking, okay, this is interesting history, but why does a 150-year-old argument matter to me? Well, because it's not history at all. This exact same fight is playing out right now, and it defines almost everything in our modern politics.
Look at this. These old ideas are absolutely alive and kicking. That classical view? It's basically the foundation of what we now call neoliberalism, the idea of a small, night watchman state where taxes are kept as low as possible. And that social view? Well, that's the core of modern social democracy, the idea of a state that provides a safety net, using taxes to give everyone that positive liberty we talked about. This is the argument over the role of the state, taxes, welfare. It's the same battle, just with new names.
So, when you boil it all down, the whole liberalism puzzle comes down to this single powerful tension. Is freedom about being left alone to do your own thing, or is freedom about having the power and the tools you need to actually succeed? That's the question. That's the split that defines this entire ideology.
And that leaves us with one last huge question. You know, as we stare down the challenges of the 21st century, we're talking AI, climate change, massive inequality. Which one of these freedoms are we going to bet on? Freedom from or freedom to? I don't have the answer. But one thing's for sure, the fight for the soul of liberalism is a long way from being over.